Welcome to World in a Frame, and my name is Rasmus. I'm from Denmark. I'm a teacher, and I like to talk about movies.
I'm Thomas. I'm 21 years old. I'm a film student from Austria.
Hi, my name is Philip. I study economics and computer science at Bocconi University in Milan. I'm from Russia, and I'm 21.
I'm Risha from London, and I'm in research, but I also like to talk about films.
Great. And Risha, you picked this movie. So what have we been watching?
So I picked the film Lolita to discuss this week, this episode, and I guess I picked it because I love the book by Vladimir Nabokov, and I'm sure that people who are into film generally have seen quite a few Kubrick movies. And I guess this one I hadn't seen yet, so I was kind of curious. The book makes a very strong impression. It's stylistically, considered excellent. So, and the film's tagline is famously, how did they ever make a film of Lolita? So it's a good question, actually. And what I was wondering myself, how on earth can you faithfully adapt if that is your intention? And I guess that's one of the key questions. What was Kubrick's intention?
Lolita. How did they ever make a movie of Lolita?
How did they ever
A movie of
How did they ever
How did they make a movie of Lolita?
make a movie of
And also, the film came out quite shortly after the book was published, and it was followed by a lot of controversy. And that's just how it goes with a story like that, a story about a paedophile, and also, he is the narrator of the story. It's a story with an unreliable narrator. So that's very important. And the book itself has been misread. And I would say that that theme extends to the film as well. Unfortunately, it's a sort of, I guess, like a sort of critical Pandora's box, in that, this thing was put out into the world and different people read it in different ways, when, Nabokov was very clear in saying that, there's only really one way to read his books. I think that with some art, there's really a lot left up to the reader, but Nabokov wasn't like that. He had a very specific way that his books should be interpreted. And he spoke about this at length. So, I guess another thing I can mention quickly is that Nabokov did get a screenwriting credit, as you see at the beginning of the film. But what I discovered was that he submitted the initial script to Kubrick, but then he later said that only sort of scraps of his original script ended up in the final film. So, you know, and I'm very curious to hear what you guys think of the film also, because, you know, the book has such a strong presence in my mind. To my viewing, the film had a really strange tone and paces in places which it did improve the second time I watched it. It sort of seemed a lot more coherent because I sort of understood a bit more what Kubrick was trying to do. But, you know, it's hard to watch a film sometimes with, I don't feel like I have fresh eyes sort of thing, because I'm constantly referring back to the book, which is a bit annoying, but, you know, I'd say the basic story is the same in both. But Kubrick is doing different things. You know, the book also has a lot of comedic elements, but the comedy in the film is kind of different. It's basically, you know, well, a lot of it revolves around Peter Sellers. I think this is Kubrick's first film with Peter Sellers, and it's that kind of style of, he plays in this film, you know, he plays different characters in some of his films, but like in this film, he seems to be playing one person who's, you know, in disguise in different ways. And it's obvious that Kubrick absolutely loves Peter Sellers because of the length of time that he spends filming his monologues, which I was just like, why are these so long? It was kind of bizarre to me, but, you know, that's his choice. What else can I say? Yeah, so the themes in the film, I guess there's themes of power, play, and coercion, not just between, you know, certain key adult characters like Humbert and his kind of, the Quilty character, who's sort of, you know, also a paedophile. He's kind of like a mirror of Humbert, you know, doing the same things, but is less, is less sort of wrapped up in his own fantasy, I would say. So there's that theme, not just between those characters and Lolita, but also between the adult characters. I think most notably between Humbert and Lolita's mum. I think her name is Charlotte. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, well, shall I maybe leave it there? I've got some other things to say. And in fact, one other thing I want to mention, which I think is really important, is that, you know, the film or the story is about this, you know, sexual exploitation of a young girl by a middle-aged man. And then during the production of the film, there were allegations that came out about 5 years ago that the girl who played Lolita, the actor is called Sue Lyons, who was 13 at the time of the filming, was herself abused by the film's producer, James B. Harris. And during that time, she was also bound to his production company by contract. So it's sort of, you know, it's like a kind of gross parallel where the film is portraying exactly what's playing out behind the camera as well. So, you know, that's just something to bear in mind, and it's a big shadow over the film. And, you know, the question of separating art from the artist, that's, you know, I think that's something that is an unending debate, and it just depends on you know, the individual. I guess I'll leave it there.
So, I mean, it's a great suggestion, and in some ways, it's a good movie, but I didn't completely like it for some reason. I think what I really liked is some language. I think probably the language that was written by Nabokov and included by Stanley Kubrick, and this kind of tone, as if everything is fine, but you can see from given the language cues that actually not everything is fine and something very wrong is going on. And I really liked it. And I also liked the acting by the actress. I think she did a really great job, although, as far as I understand, such an acting role at such a young age destroyed her career. And it's a pity. But this movie suggestion inspired me to actually read more, watch more Stanley Kubrick movies. And I watched Doctor Strangelove and 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I didn't become a fan of Stanley Kubrick, but when I watched A Space Odyssey, I'm not a fan of sci-fi, but I was astonished by how perfect this movie is from technical standpoint. The scenes are stunning, and also the classical music, etc. But at the same time, it's a very cold movie. I think Lolita is also a very cool movie. I also decided to read a little bit of Nabokov, in particular Pale Fire, and I guess the style in Pale Fire is basically a perverted version, stylistically, of Evgeny Onegin by Alexander Pushkin, and Pushkin is like, I don't know, Russian Shakespeare or Goethe. He basically created the literal language. And what Nabokov tried to do is, instead of creating something, he wanted to destroy it. So basically, I think the style of Nabokov, his playfulness, is complete opposite of what the classical literature intended to do, and I think it's also interesting. And now I also think that it would have been more interesting if Nabokov were to direct the movie. There was a fellow writer in this period, Alan Rob Krieger. He actually directed his own movies in addition to writing the script for Last Year at Marienbad. And they also, I think they more faithfully reproduce this playfulness with style in literature to playfulness with style in the film. I would have expected Kubrick to play with narration, with in this film, and I don't think he did enough.
Yeah, so I'm actually a very big fan of Kubrick and his body of work. This is actually the only film of his that I hadn't seen before recording this episode, or before watching it for the episode. His only feature, anyway. And actually, after watching Lolita, I went ahead and watched all of his short films as well, so now I have completed his filmography officially. And yeah, I also think it's one of his weakest movies, but it's still a really good movie. So that just goes to show how brilliant of a filmmaker he really was. When even one of his weakest films is this good. I think also the tone is really odd. It's very, I mean, Kubrick's films always have this touch of humor, and in a film about this dark subject matter, you don't really expect it. It kind of reminded me of A Clockwork Orange in that sense, with this dark sense of humor. And Peter Sellers really, I think he's absolutely incredible in this film. I love his performance. I think he's hilarious. I could also watch his monologues forever. I think he gives a better comedic performance in this than Doctor Strangelove. Maybe that's a controversial take, but I think he's absolutely brilliant. What I found to be very interesting was because Kubrick, he made his film in England instead of in Hollywood because he was kind of fed up with the studio system. Famously on Spartacus, he didn't have a lot of creative control. So he went to England to shoot this film, which he thought he would have more creative control over, and in a sense he did, but the censors kind of messed with it as far as I'm aware. So it's really funny that he, for his passion project, he chose this film specifically, this source material, which I'm not familiar with. I have to say I haven't read the book, so I can't really draw a comparison. But what I found to be really interesting about Lolita was the style of the filmmaking, because it kind of reminded me of the film noir movement, I guess, or genre, which in the early 60s was already kind of faded out. It was more 40s, 50s kind of thing, with these very stark shadows, low-key lighting and stuff, and also usually narration, oftentimes unreliable narrator and stuff. And the film also begins, Lolita begins basically with the ending of the story, where we see Humbert kill Peter Sellers. And then there's this narration like, oh, you wonder how this all happened, or something like that, you know. And then we see the whole story, which is pretty common in film noir. And I don't know. I'm not sure how to really explain the comparison. There are a lot of shots where he has this kind of film noir lighting with these shadows, also the light shining through the windows and stuff, and having these very parallel line shadows everywhere. But on the other hand, it also subverts these cliches, I guess, of the genre, also in the narrative, because it is actually kind of a noir narrative if you think about it. It is this love triangle story about a guy falling for a girl who is basically a femme fatale, at least from his perspective, I guess. It reminded me of films like, Scarlet Street or whatever. Also, Humbert as a character gives me very much Edward G. Robinson vibes, if you know some of his performances in film noir. But the tone is totally different, way more comedic, light-hearted in a sense, whereas noirs are mostly very dark and self-serious. So that I thought was a very interesting subversion of this noir style. I don't know if it was intentional or just something that, I don't know, Kubrick wanted to do for some other reason, but to me that read as kind of like a break with this noir genre that Kubrick arguably was part of, with stuff like The Killing maybe and Killer's Kiss. Maybe not exactly the type of noir films you would think about, but kind of in the same vein, I think. That's
I must admit that I was sort of embarrassed when I watched it, because I for some reason I have, of course, I haven't read the book. Of course, I knew about the book. I knew about the sort of the overall themes and so on, but I've never read it, and I have seen pictures, the movie poster of Lolita, and I had it on DVD and so on. And the first embarrassment when I started watching the movie is that it was black and white, and I had no idea it was black and white. And I even have the big Taschen book with Stanley Kubrick, and it just shows that I've never actually sat down and looked into it, because then I would have known that it was black and white. And then the next thing that surprised me was that then it's Peter Sellers, and I didn't know that he was in the movie. So for some reason, I thought I had sort of an overview of Kubrick and his movies, but in this case, I just didn't have a clue what this was about. I also must say I found it quite strange. And of course, sort of this blend of these comedic episodes, and sort of it's weird, and I think actually, Risha, it's important that you mentioned this, that in the book it's an unreliable narrator. And maybe that's is also something that must be taken into consideration when watching this movie. I thought that some of the scenes were very uncomfortable to watch. I sort of had this. It's like, when like watching The Office or something, where something happens and it's just it's so embarrassing that I can't even watch it. And I had
I was going to say,
I had some moments.
Element,
I had some of these moments, especially with the mother, and how she behaves, and actually also to a lesser extent, but also to Humbert and his actions. And I completely missed the point about the story, but I constantly thought that the only adult person in this story is Lolita, who is actually the child, because everybody else is they are really behaving in a very childish manner, and she's the child, and she's actually behaving as an adult in many ways, and that sort of storytelling, it's kind of weird.
So one thing I was very uncomfortable about was actually, as you mentioned, Lolita's mother, because she was jealous of her own daughter. She knew that Humbert was attracted to her, and she still allowed him to stay in their house, and she actually was jealous of her own daughter. And it's not. I mean, it's very strange to me. I think it's very wrong. And yeah, that's the moment that actually, I think this this behavior of a mother was the most apparent sign that something wasn't wrong.
For me, it was that the mother was jealous of her own daughter, and sort of all of this sort of lost youth or something, or wanting to be young again, something like that. I think, aren't there some Greek myths or something also centering around this topic? But that was sort of the thing I thought of when watching their relationship, and why some of the mother's actions towards the daughter.
I just want to say that I think a lot of the characters, or most of the adult main characters at least, are very terrible people. Humber, the mother, Peter Sellers and stuff. So yeah, it's really a character study of those very messed up people, which is what makes the film interesting, in my opinion.
And Lolita doesn't really have any agency. It's just sort of adults doing things to her, really. But I really enjoyed, I can't remember that actor's name, who plays Lolita's mum. I thought she was really good. The first time I saw the film, I found her performance so sort of melodramatic, but it made a lot more sense on the second viewing. She's the victim of Humbert's deception. And I think that is all combined with her, obvious loneliness, or she wants, a partner. She's like a woman on her own in, I guess, if it's set in the 60s, then the 60s. And, Humbert's kind of telling her one thing, and this is kind of a theme throughout the whole film, I think. People sort of saying one thing, and then the evidence in front of their eyes is telling them something else. But yeah, just to come back, I agree that all the adults are pretty horrible and just completely driven by whatever their desires are, without really thinking about, should I be doing this or not? But yeah.
But as at the same time that because you're right, he is deceiving her, but at the same time she marries him, but she still has sort of a shrine for her husband with pictures and everything. So it's very strange that she still has this attachment to her late husband, and some of the scenes we have this, that he is his pictures on the wall and he's looking at us and at them. I found it very. There are several places where pictures on the walls or on nightstands or something play a role, and Kubrick uses that very much.
Yeah.
Also, of course, the very final shot, literally, is where he shoots Peter Sellers and the bullet goes through a painting of a woman and hits him behind the painting, which we don't see. We only see the painting with the hole, and that's the frame the film ends on. Yeah.
I thought that was brilliant. Like, I don't know if I'm reading that the right way, but as it's a Kubrick film, I was, first of all, I just loved the shot. With the bullet holes in the port, just like a sort of romantic style portrait of this lady, young lady. I don't know what the painting is, but it's sort of symbolic of, I guess, Lolita in this film. That's how I saw it. She is the real victim here, even though, Quilty gets killed and everything, and Humbert gets sent to prison, as we know from the story. But that for me was what that final shot meant, and the camera seems to linger on that before it ends. The film ends.
Yeah, she's quite literally caught in a crossfire between those two adult men, kind of fighting it out between them, and she's just in the middle without agency, as you already said. Yeah.
But I don't think when they actually when Humbert shoots Quilty, I think she's with another man, and I think she's moving to Alaska, and Humbert gave her money to do so. So probably she's now free, of course, with all the drama. But they do not actually fight for her. I think Humbert just wants revenge. but yeah.
I must admit I'm not fully sure that I quite understood the Quilty character. How can any of you who is he? I mean, we hear that Lolita, he's some sort of famous that she has had some connection to, but he pops up in different places throughout the movie, and I'm constantly not really sure about who he is.
I think, at least that's how I interpret it. The idea is that he is another Humbert, in that sense, the Humbert, maybe. And when Humbert sees this other person who acts basically like him, who also abuses Lolita in the same way as he does, that's when he can see how terrible that is, so bad that he actually shoots him. So you could kind of read it almost as a suicide, in that sense, when he's confronted with the reality of his actions in this other character.
Yeah, I would say he actually he's so deep in his fantasy that, you know, his story is a love story, that he's motivated to kill Quilty because it's too real of a reminder that, you know, of his actual nature. That's how I looked at it, you know, quite similar, but yeah.
Also,
but I, you know, again, I'm not sure that, but I guess in the book, yeah, Quilty, you're never quite sure if Quilty is a real person. And then I noticed that in the film, there's a scene where Humbert takes Lolita out of school when he gets this kind of fit of jealousy because, you know, she's been in the school play and whatever, is getting all this attention, and he convinces her to run away, and they're driving to, I can't remember where it was, like Mexico or something. And as they're driving on the highway, there's a car following them. And it's kind of strange, you know, is there really a car there? You know, is it anything? Are they actually being followed? It was unclear to me. I'm not sure. But yeah, definitely. I mean, in the film, it seems like Quilty is a real person, you know, a writer, a TV or film writer, just like Humbert is also in the arts. He's a poet and a lecturer. So yeah, I guess that was my understanding.
Because there's also this scene where he's in disguise, and even when I read in the book, apparently there were some other scenes where he was dressed as a woman and also sort of tried to trick Humbert, but that was cut from the movie. But that's why I also thought about this unreliable narrator theme, that is he just a fantasy figure? I don't know. It's interesting.
But I think it's also interesting that we have basically two jealousy scenes. First, the mother is jealous of her daughter, and second, Humbert is jealous of Quilty for falling in love with, I mean, not falling in love, but, you know, basically raping Lolita, so abusing Lolita. So basically, it's also, there's this double. Quilty is a double for Humbert, but there's also this double jealousy thing, and maybe that's what interested Nabokov and or Stanley Kubrick.
And I mean, there's one more scene of jealousy, which plays out very differently than the other scenes, I think, which is towards the ending when Humbert visits Lolita at her new place with her husband and her kids. And there, I think he almost has this fatherly reaction to it more than jealous lover maybe. So he gives Lolita money and stuff, and is like, or I don't remember the exact details, but she tells him that they're gonna move to Alaska and all that. And yeah, it's way less violent, I guess, way less filled with anger, and more this desperate attempt to get Lolita back one last time, which thankfully it doesn't go Humber's way. Yeah, but it's interesting, I think, seeing this scene in contrast to the other scenes of jealousy. Especially since after that, I think we go to the ending, which is also the beginning, where he confronts Peter Sellers.
I found it strange that, I mean, why do you think that the film began at the end? Because I found the way that the ending quite abrupt, and it was almost as if they had decided at in a kind of editing stage to put the ending at the beginning to help us to understand, or to kind of set up the Quilty character rather than trying to understand who this character was appearing through. I don't know. Did anyone have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I read in Wikipedia that Stanley Kubrick wanted to, gain the attention of the viewer and maintain it throughout the film, and that's what he did to do it. It's also a way so that it's basically a cycle. We see the end, and we see the beginning, and we go through the beginning to almost the end. It's an interesting way to play with narration. I expected more playfulness with it, but yeah. Because as far as I understand, Nabokov is a postmodernist, one of the first ones. So I expected more when it comes to narration, something more similar, maybe to Pulp Fiction or whatever.
I thought there could have been better use of narration, or more extensive use of narration in this film. That was one of my main, I guess, criticisms of the film, if I can be so bold as to criticize Kubrick. But I thought when I think he finally starts narrating at about half an hour into the film, and I was like, oh, finally we're hearing what he's actually thinking. He has these really scathing opinions of the people around him, and kind of almost, he's this European in America, and we're getting this sense that, through some of his dialogue where he's, you get this sense of I guess, he's speaking with a double meaning. He's kind of talking to himself as much as he is to other people in places. But I found the narration was really useful, and I kind of wanted a bit more, I think, because hearing his inner thoughts was so, was so revealing. I guess I don't know if that is something that occurred to anyone of you guys.
I don't think I noticed it.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I mean, I did notice the narration, of course, but I couldn't tell you what exactly the narration was saying. I mean, to me, it didn't have much of an impact, to be honest. and there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of it, right? It was like a couple lines here and there.
Yeah. I think that's what made it sort of weird to me, that it's, when there's a film where you hear an internal monologue, it's often kind of peppered throughout the film, whereas in this film it kind of just appeared in these sort of here and there, but it wasn't very consistent.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Peter Sellers, and he is known for improvising and doing a lot of stuff, making things up, and apparently he also did this in this movie, and I think it's odd, knowing Stanley Kubrick, that Kubrick uses him in it's two movies, right? Dr. Strangelove and this. Thomas, you're the expert. He's not in any other movies, is he?
I don't think so.
No. Because Kubrick is known for this being very, very taking shot, constantly repeating shots, doing it over and over and over again, trying to get to this perfection level. And I think that Peter Sellers is sort of the complete opposite in this regard. And I wondered how they were at all able to work together. And as far as I could read, that Peter Sellers also annoyed some of the other actors, because he just became a bit creative, and they found it hard to work with.
I mean, of course, I wasn't there, I can't say for sure, but to me it kind of reminded me of the relationship between James Whale and Una O'Connor. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but basically James Whale, who did Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man and stuff, he loved to cast this actress, Una O'Connor, who gives these complete over-the-top comedic performances that annoy pretty much everyone who's watching these films, but James Whale was so delighted with her, he always wanted to cast her, and I can only imagine something similar with Peter Sellers and Stanley Kubrick, Kubrick just being so delighted with Peter Sellers that he just let him go off the rails and do whatever. And I think it works really well. Like, Peter Sellers is really a fantastic comedian.
And, with Dr. Strangelove, I don't know if you have seen, there's an Errol Morris documentary called The Fog of War, where there's this guy, Stephen McNamara, who explains, that in that era, the American military leadership really were, that sort of crazy and trigger happy in terms of sending nuclear missiles, pressing the nuclear button. What else was I going to say? Yeah. Sorry, I've forgotten my second point. I had another point, but I forgot what it was.
The second point was probably that Lolita is also about strange love.
Very good.
Yeah. It's also very weird that he didn't win an Oscar for Best Directing. The only Oscar he won was for Best, I think, Visual Effects for 2001 Space Odyssey, but it's, I guess, wasn't recognized for directing.
But is this, I sort of, and maybe it's just me, I haven't watched all of Kubrick's movies. For some reason, I have a handful of movies that I have seen, and some of them I have seen many, many times, and then I have some of his movies that I've never watched, and this was one of them until recently, and I have a hard time. I wouldn't have guessed watching this if I didn't knew that it was a Kubrick movie. I think it's a bit different than the others. Not as sort of, and maybe it is sort of the visuals that I think are not very what I when I think of Kubrick, but maybe it's just because I think of mainly Kubrick maybe in some of his later movies, although that Strangelove is made shortly after this one, and Spartacus was before this, and so on. So I'm a bit. I don't. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he really took some time to fully develop his style. I think the only one of his earlier films that's very recognizably Kubrick is Paths of Glory, where he already has those amazing tracking shots, his wide-angle lenses, and all the stuff that he would later use. But really, I think arguably even Doctor Strangelove isn't. Maybe it starts with Strangelove actually, his style. Yeah, I think everything beginning from Strangelove is very recognizably Kubrick. But yeah, I agree. In Lolita, it's not as obvious. And if you go even earlier with stuff like Killer's Kiss and the Killing, and especially Fear and Desire, my God, that film is terrible. Really, it's hard to imagine that guy would go on to make 2001 and Barry Lyndon and all that amazing stuff. Yeah, I just want to raise one more point because maybe that's something a bit more meta, I guess, than discussing the film itself, which is the morality of even making a film like this. Because I mean, I'm sure most of us or all of us would agree that this film is definitely condemning Humbert as a character and not portraying him in a sympathetic light, but still having this genuinely young actress in this very sexualized role should at least raise moral concerns, I think. Which isn't to say that I think the film shouldn't have been made or anything. But as you already mentioned, those allegations about her being abused, that's almost to be expected in the entertainment industry. There's so many stories of child actors and actresses that get into this industry and get abused either sexually or in any other way. So yeah, at least I think it's worth mentioning.
Yeah, I just wanted to say as well. Yeah, I think coming back to the way the film is uncomfortable to watch. I think like that's a really good concluding point, and you know, I think it does a good job of putting side by side, you know, this sort of conventional, I guess, sort of provincial American life with this sort of seedy stuff going on in parallel in the same environment. But, you know, as to why, you know, whether we should make a film like this, I guess, you know, we as human beings, we tend to, you know, there's like 1,000,001 films and documentaries about serial killers, for example. Like what's that about? We're kind of obsessed with you know, this idea, or kind of morbidly fascinated by it. You know, it's only recently that I feel like there's this kind of realization that people have in the past kind of glorified, you know, serial killers as kind of genius characters or genius figures, or masterminds, when, you know, they're just people who are killing people. How genius can that be? And I guess something interesting I came across, which is completely, I guess, a different kind of show, different league maybe. But I saw, and it's just as strange, something I came across. I'm not a particularly big fan of this show, but I was reading this interview with the director of Breaking Bad. I think he's called Vince Gilligan. And you know, the way that this TV show was made was pushing the audience to remain loyal to this character who behaves in an increasingly deplorable way. And they said, the director said that the one thing that they didn't get this character to do was to, you know, sexually abuse a child, because they felt that was just, you know, then the illusion that, or the spell that the audience were under would, you know, they would too easily fall. They wanted to take it right to the end of him sort of murdering people and lying to everyone and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, it is probably like the most uncomfortable theme that any art maker can deal with, really. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess. You know, why Kubrick chose this book. Was it because of the controversy around it? You know, was he kind of trying to sort of capitalize on that on some way, or did he just love the book? Or I'm not really sure, but it's certainly. Sorry?
He liked the book. Okay. Yeah, there are some interviews in this where he was really fond of it.
Okay.
I thought of one of the things that I just thought of is also this, that in reality we never see anything. All these forbidden actions and so on, they are created in our minds, because also it's of course it's censorship and so on. And then Kubrick puts in there some of these. It's actually almost hilarious that they go to this girl camp, and it's called Camp Climax. And when he visits her, then there's somebody says a line that sort of she's going to some dentist because she has to have her cavities filled on Wednesday, and so on. There are all these sort of it's never directly said or shown, but it's just our minds that creates these images, and and I think that's sort of one of the good things about the movie, that it would be a completely different movie if it were more visual or something.
Yeah, I thought that was really one of my favorite elements of the film. And yeah, actually, Quilty at that dance where Lolita's mother talks about Lolita getting her cavity filled, Quilty laughs because he's laughing at the innuendo, you know, to himself. Obviously, Lolita's mom doesn't mean it that way, but I think that's why he laughs at that.
So, Thomas, do you want to recommend anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think people who like Lolita will probably like A Clockwork Orange even more. It's also a Kubrick film, of course, but I think it's certainly the superior film. I think Lolita is overly long, honestly, and in A Clockwork Orange the pacing is very nice. It also has this disturbed, unreliable narrator. It also has the themes of sexual violence and also authority, which is something we haven't really talked about with Lolita, but there are all these references to authority and even authoritative states and stuff. In the beginning, Peter Sellers acts like a Roman emperor or something. At some point, Lolita's mother tells her to like go to her room, and Lolita's like, "Oh, seek fucking Heil," or something like that. So yeah, all these topics I think are better explored in A Clockwork Orange. So yeah, obvious recommendation maybe, but I think it's very accurate.
I could suggest watching Alan Robert Greer's films because he was a writer who wrote in a different but similar fashion. He was also a postmodernist. He also made films, which are, I mean, films not just adoption of novels, but more adoption of literary ideas and transforming into uh, ideas that are suitable in the film form, and they are very interesting from this point. We also often deal with some forbidden themes in society. So yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me actually of the book The Lover by the French author Marguerite Duras, which I absolutely love this book. And similarly, yeah, it's it's sort of autobiographical and pretty short, very easy to read. She said that she wrote it when she was drunk, and just thought to keep that in mind when you're reading it. It flows really well. But yeah, it just covers a similar theme, I guess, just some experiences from her early adolescence. And then in terms of film, I guess, yeah, I mean, I just go back to Dr. Strangelove just because I found Peter Sellers' performance quite fascinating, and I feel like his performance is tied in and gel together with the rest of the film of Dr. Strangelove much better than it is in Lolita. I feel like his segments sort of stick out a bit in Lolita, and I think it's much better done in Dr. Strangelove.
I just remembered that actually one famous movie that could be compared to this on another level would be Woody Allen's Manhattan. I don't want to raise that discussion, start that, but that actually we have the old guy and the young girl and all the controversy following that. And also in the end the young girl actually being the most adult and the adult behaving like a little child. I don't know why I didn't make this connection before, because I have seen that movie many times, but it's been a while. So yeah. So thank you for listening, and like and subscribe and all of that.
Bye. Thank you for listening.
Goodbye.
Bye.